Hey everybody, it's Owen McCafferty for the Film Photography Project. I'm here today coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio, and I have a very special guest, which I'm really excited about. Jonatán López from Spotify is joining us today. You are a creative producer for Spotify, particularly there's the Spotify Originals, which I'll let you explain what that is. Part of the visual storytelling that you do for Spotify is using film in some of that content. And I think that is super interesting, especially coming out of a modern, innovative company like Spotify. You don't really hear that a lot. And I found out that you guys were using film because my best friend, a mutual acquaintance of ours, Ben, who works for Spotify, we got on the topic of film and he said, they're doing something here at Spotify and they're using film. But before we get into all of that, and I'll let you kind of talk about what you do at Spotify and how all that works.
Yeah, well, I think everyone knows it traditionally as like a streaming service, right? An audio streaming service.
Right.
I think in the past year, the company has repositioned itself as an audio network, right? So it's not just a place for you to listen to your music, create playlists. It's also a place now for you to discover podcasts and listen to audiobooks, and even at times watch like exclusive content from an artist. Like that can include like music videos or short documentaries or short form content that's only exclusive to the platform. So it's a unique hub now, and I think that it continues to change as I think from 10 or 11 years ago. Don't
Right.
quote me on that. I think
Yeah.
it's it has evolved just from a streaming service to something more. And lately, at least with me personally, it's like I've dabbled in podcasts now, and I have a podcast that's also out right now. So
what's your podcast?
That one is called Butt Dial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's a chat between artists.
Really?
It's kind of like you're eavesdropping on a conversation at artists during late night. And I think that's what's cool about the company is that they allow us to experiment a lot,
Sure.
And I think that's how we were able to kind of dabble with film.
Why film?
My personal taste aside, it's like I really like working in the medium. I think it's it takes me back to film school. It allows you to be a lot more not just economical in your shot choices, but I like when I have to think about what I have to shoot, and
right.
So that limitation that film gives you, I think, is an asset. It's a great tool for creatives because it's like here's the you can only buy whatever your budget allows, but like you basically have less than you do digitally, right?
Right.
And you really can't. Not to say you can't mess up, but like you really do have to practice a little more because otherwise you're wasting money and you're wasting time.
Sure.
Especially if you're shooting something with an artist that's like an hour or two or
right. You
hours.
only get a limited amount of time with that person.
Yeah, you get a small window, and so like shooting on film is incredibly risky in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, though, because we have such a limited window, I think it allows me personally to stay focused, to be like, okay, I know I want to get this and I want to do this. And so
are you mostly shooting 16 millimeter? Is that what you shoot at least for this kind of content? And what kind of film are you shooting?
We shoot Kodak, like 250D or 500,
Okay.
We don't always shoot on film. What tends to happen is we do mix, right? So we'll shoot with the like Alexa Mini,
which is I don't know what that is. Is that a digital? I assume it's a digital camera of some sort. Okay.
So it's a camera by Ari. It's their digital camera. Yeah. I tend to like add film to that production because while like sometimes I'm like, okay, well the main shoot can't be all shot on film. So what we'll do is get like a Bolex, or I can't remember the name, but it's just like this handheld Russian camera that is like
Krasnogorsk.
Yes,
it
is.
Great camera.
Exactly it. Yeah. And we will like, just load it up with film and shoot from the hip. But I use it as the B camera because I like the texture it provided. There are certain things that I think that it emulated for me in the bigger project. So sure. Let's say this project's mostly digital. For all intents and purposes, the client or Spotify itself wants it on mostly digital format. But I want to shoot a third of it, or yeah, about a third of it on film.
Right.
I like to mix and match. I like mixed medium. It's really cool. I think it feels, that to me feels more modern than anything else. I like the texture it provides to a story. It's always like, how does it service the story? In this case, like I'm thinking one example, which is for a cover story we did for a rapper in Chicago named Polo G. We shot mostly all his principal stuff on digital, but I wanted to get a slice of life of Chicago, in the south side of Chicago. You're not going to bring a big camera around. It's much easier, and people are less intimidated by it. People are much more curious about it. And we found ourselves, like, without this big camera, we were able to shoot really intimate portraits of people. And I think that's what film like, it kind of, it for me, it feels way less daunting. Some people describe the texture of film as dreamlike, right? But I always think that it actually feels much more closer to the way you remember things. It's more close to memory. And so that's how I use it, is like to make it feel like these are slices of life in this world. This is how Polo G grew up, and this is how this is the world around him. So it's kind of, to me, it's motivated from that point of view, from his memory and his, like, and that's how I use it.
Right.
There was one project that we shot, which was an ASAP Ferg project called House of Ferg, and that was shot in New York City and in Los Angeles, and we shot all of that on film, with the exception of the miniatures. I would say my first major exposure to film is, I was an intern for a couple years for Terrence Malick on The Tree of Life and the film To the Wonder. And he shot those on 35 and IMAX. He, at the time, I remember you can quote me maybe, but the amount of film that he shot for Tree of Life was enough to wrap around the United States like twice or something like that. And so like, he shot a lot on film, a lot on natural lighting, literally, like, would wait during certain times of the day.
Sure, to get the right lighting.
Choose the right building when the light would come in, and it's like, is it north facing, is it south facing, is it west facing, is it east facing?
Yeah,
that's all going to have very
the core of photography, right? Do you use film for I mean, obviously we've been talking about your Spotify stuff, but personally, whether it's projects that you do for other people that you're being hired for, or whether it's stuff you just do on your own, do you use film for other stuff outside of your work for Spotify?
Yeah, I mean, on the photography side, I have like a Nikon 35 Ti, which is like a very, like, it's a point and shoot camera.
Yeah.
And I find those, like, they're so tiny, they're so simple, and I usually use them when I'm going to, like, parties, or when I'm going to, like, traveling. I love it because I don't want to see what I'm taking. I just want to take the moment.
Right.
And they're very discreet. You know what I mean? There's like, when you're in the moment, especially for street photography, when you're in the moment, people oftentimes are like, "Hey, let me see what you took," and then, you'd be like, "I can't show you. I literally can't show you. I can't show you." But like, what film allows you to do, and with analog technology, and this is just a pro, and you can use it as a con, however way you want to frame it, is that it allows you, like I said, to not just plan, but also to reflect, right? It allows you to really sit with what you've done.
Sure. Yeah.
Even if it's a mistake, you're like, okay, I will never make that mistake again. I realize now that I made a very big mistake.
Right.
It cost me and wasted my, I have however many rolls of film you have, or however many feet you have. I think whatever technology or whatever tool allows you to be, it has a natural limitation to it, is good for you. I think it's good for you as an artist, because it challenges you, and it doesn't give you the easy way out. Anything that encourages you to be deliberate and mindful is good. I'm always excited by all new technologies, but I always go back to film, because I think it's because it's tangible. It's just like putting a record on, even putting a CD on. You can feel it. I love getting the canister back, and I think that it allows you to feel much more connected to your work. You know what I mean?
Sure. Anybody who's interested in using film, even if they're just using it as a part of a much bigger project that is digital or is all film, doesn't matter. I find it interesting, and I think everybody at the FPP does too. So we're really excited to see where things go for you. So thanks again. Thanks everybody for watching,
Blast.
and I'm sure that we will see you soon.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Hit me up anytime.
Bye, everybody.